Most real estate investors today are having a hard time finding properties. And yet, Miss Adrienne is finding properties like it's going out of style. But here's the kicker. She's visually impaired. Another way of saying it is she can't really see, yet she owns over 17 properties and 45 doors. So let's get started. So most people can see, and yet they are blind in terms of the opportunities that are in front of them. And we have a repeat guest today. So Miss Adrienne, welcome.
Thank you.
So Miss Adrienne, you're kind of visually challenged.
Yes, I am.
Right? And yet you're a real estate investor.
Yes.
And not only that, today, how many properties do you have?
I have 17 properties.
17 properties?
Yes.
And how many doors is that?
45 doors.
17 properties, 45 doors,
Yes.
and you are visually challenged.
Yes.
Right? So how is it that somebody that has a problem with their eyesight is buying real estate like it's going out of style?
I just have a really good team that I've built throughout the years. And yeah, I have a really good team behind me.
Okay. So I want to take you kind of back, right? Because for a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, you got to be making this up, right? Yet it's, I don't know whether you know it or not, but it's very inspirational to people that can see, right? Yet they may be able to see the world around them. They
Right.
just don't, they happen to be blind to the opportunities.
Yes.
Right? Why do you think that is?
I think some people can be complacent. They're just comfortable, where they're at. With me, I just think there's always opportunities to be better in all aspects of your life. And most people are afraid to do something different.
Okay. So when did this happen? Were you born where your eyesight was weak and then it kind of basically pretty much went away? How did that happen exactly?
No, I was born with 20/20 vision, went away to college, drove, lived on my own, all of that. I had really bad headaches that ended up damaging my optic nerves due to the fluid that built up in my brain.
I see. So in one way, I think, I don't know, I mean, when I think about it, that's kind of worse because you're like, okay, it had been a certain way and now it's not.
Right.
Did you, when this happened to you, how old were you?
I was 23.
23.
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever kind of have a pity party for yourself? You're like, oh my God, my life is over. Like, you would think that you go in a state of depression. You're like, oh my God, what am I going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Did you go through that?
Yes, I did. I would say for about 8 months after it happened, just wanted to stay at home in one room. I cut off friends because, in my head it was, who would want to be friends with somebody that can no longer see? So I cut them off before they could cut me off.
Sure.
And then just talking to my dad, and he's like, Adrienne, if this is how you want to live your life, then okay. He's like, but life is going to go on with or without you. And you have to decide if you want to go on with life.
So basically, was it coming from a spiritual place? Where was he very religious? Where did that thought process come from?
My dad's like, he's very, very spiritual and just very realistic. He kind of told me, in life, some people get the short end of the stick, and unfortunately, you did. But that doesn't mean that your life is over.
So basically, what happened, unfortunately. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Right? So it's like either you can have a pity party, and it's much easier said than done, but this is your reality, and you're like, hey, I'm going to deal with it.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And so you are kind of dealing with this. So now you have to learn to live, right?
Yes.
Every single thing that I can't even imagine.
Right.
But you basically have to retrain your brain yourself to be able to live by yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how does real estate come into the picture exactly?
Okay, so right after I lost my vision, I decided to go back to school to get my master's in social work because I had just graduated with my undergrad.
Okay.
So I made it to my final year in grad school, and then my mother passed away, unfortunately. And I was in the Uber Just really, kind of contemplating because I didn't want to go into the field of social work, helping other people when I myself was grieving and, just needed help. And I was talking to the Uber driver, and I don't know how we got onto the subject of, me being in school, but I kind of told him, I'm in school and I don't think I want to pursue this degree. And I think I want to go into business for myself. And he asked me what type of business. I told him I think I want to open up a laundromat in my head, collecting coins, deposit in the bank. I can do that. And he told me, no, don't do that. And he said, what you should do is buy a piece of real estate. And I asked him, but how would I manage it myself? And he said, you'll get a property manager. And from that conversation, I just did my research for about a year and eventually took a leap of faith.
So, it's kind of funny, right? You're in an Uber.
Yes.
And an Uber driver is like, no, ma'am, you shouldn't buy a laundry mat.
Right.
You should buy a piece of real estate, right? A lot of times we all have these conversations with people and somebody says something and in the moment you have the conversation, then you're like, it's just an Uber driver.
Right.
And we
right.
dismiss that, right?
Right.
But yet you took that to heart. Why is that?
I just felt like he was kind of being realistic with me on how I can create generational wealth for not only me, but, if I would eventually have kids. And I just appreciated that. I appreciate his honesty.
Got it. So you kind of took it to heart,
Yes.
right? And then now, for you, in terms of vision-wise, right? People are like, well, but she can really see. Maybe Andrew was just saying that, right? Visually, how much can you see?
I would say about 20%.
About 20%.
Yes.
Right? So you can make out an object in front of you.
Yes, yes.
Right? So basically, when you're going into a piece of property, you're not able to see the countertops. You're not able to see the property itself.
No.
But you can tell, obviously, there's a property there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So now, how do you exactly operate on a day-to-day basis? Because a lot of the way we live, right, when you can see, is based on our vision, especially when it comes to real estate.
Right.
Right? How do you do that?
I think for me, I stick to what works for me and not necessarily what everybody around me is
Sure.
doing. So all of my properties are in the south suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
I live in the southwest suburbs. So me or anybody, close to me can easily access, those properties if something was to go wrong. I have different softwares that, help me keep a track of rent and leases and everything, like that.
Got it. So you have to have built a team.
Yes.
Right, for this, because this is not possible. Somebody's got to do an inspection for you.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to go to the property with you, right? Somebody's got to do all the things that I would take for granted, at least the basics of it, right? You need a key player on your team.
Yes.
That is going to kind of, it's not that you're not physically able, but I mean, clearly, visually, you need somebody to be your eyesight.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how do you manage that? I mean, how do you do your inspections? Do you have like one kind of agent that understands what your needs are and you deal with that team and attorney, property management? How do you do that?
Well, as far as like the agent, when I work with the agent, I kind of tell them, what I'm looking for. I'll even, show them one of my properties. And when I'm going to look at these properties, I'm asking them certain questions in details. How does the kitchen look? How does the bathroom look? What type of floors? How are the cabinets? So I'm asking very specific questions, even the neighborhood. I'll have somebody drive me around the neighborhood 1 or 2 times so I can get a feel of the area. I stick to kind of what works for me. Like I don't do guts. I do, moderate to cosmetic, as you say, like putting the lipstick on it. And I just have a really good team behind me. I've built, handyman people, GCs, just off of recommendations and just, asking people, like, do you have good, reliable people?
Got it. So over the years, you've kind of put together a team. Now, mind you, obviously, we live in a society where sometimes people get taken advantage of.
Yes.
Right? Have you always been lucky that that has never happened to you, or how do you make sure that the work is done in terms of the quality, in terms of the fit and finishes? Because not every person you're going to find is going to be honest. How do you deal with that?
Exactly. Well, my property manager, when we're doing renovation, he kind of oversees everything and makes sure that things are being done the way that they should. If I bring new people onto my team, I'm looking at the referrals that they have from other people, and if they don't do the job right, see you.
Okay.
You have to cut them.
Got it.
Yeah.
So basically, kind of you've over the years, did you have to go through like a trial and error, kind of like anybody else?
Yes. So I've made, quite a few mistakes, but I've made some decent ones too.
Okay, got it. So generally, the properties you buy, you're buying in South Side or the South suburbs?
South suburbs.
Okay, because for people who may not be familiar, South Side Chicago is in the city of Chicago.
Yes,
right.
correct.
That's a different style of investing.
Yes.
Not right, wrong, indifferent. It's just a different style of investing. You're
Yes,
going to
it
deal
is.
with different issues there.
Yes.
Your taxes are going to be low, but then you're going to really have to screen tenants hard.
Exactly,
Right?
yes.
You start coming to the south suburbs, the market changes a little bit.
Yes.
Right? So why have you stuck to those areas?
I just feel like the south suburbs, I kind of just know the areas better than the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
The south side of Chicago has decent neighborhoods within the city, but I feel in the south suburbs it's by area.
Got
if
it.
that makes any sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's hard to know with Chicago unless you know block by block.
Right.
It can be a bit of a challenge to buy
Yes.
properties over there, and you can have a real beautiful property down the street.
Yes.
And just on the other side of the block, it can be a total disaster.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So you're basically using now in terms of finding properties, right? We were laughing about this when you started, and you're talking to somebody from Mastery,
Yes.
right? And what did they say to you?
They said, it's pretty hard finding deals on the MLS.
Right.
And pretty much all of my properties I have found on the MLS. So if I can barely see and I'm finding them, I don't know what they're doing.
Right. So, no, this is funny, right? I mean, we were laughing about this, right? That people with full 2020 vision can't see the deals.
Right.
Right. And yet here you are finding all these deals, right?
Yes.
I mean, you've kind of scaled up to 17 properties, close to 45 units, 45
Yes.
doors. And then you have a couple more under contract.
Yes, I do.
So that, how many doors will that be?
That would be 55.
55.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of cash flow is that after you pay all your expenses, right? Because obviously taxes have gone up, right? Interest rates are high.
Yes.
Insurance premiums have gone up.
Yes.
But what kind of cash flow is that every single month?
I would say about 25,000.
25,000
Yes.
a month.
Yes.
Okay. And now, mind you, this is a process, right?
Yes.
This is like a lot of times people misunderstand this. They're like, well, Andrew, what does that mean every month she has $25,000? Every month it just comes in and just sits on it? I'm like, listen, you clearly have never run a business.
Exactly.
Right? Some months are going to be better than others. Some months are going to be not so good.
Right.
And then you're going to have to redeploy your capital
Yes.
into your business. But over a period of time, you're going to have a pile of cash that comes in month in and month out.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this whole philosophy, right, of buying rentals, you started with the Uber.
Yes.
Right, kind of you got this idea, then you started doing research. Now you had a few properties before you came to us in Mastery.
Correct.
Why would you show up? Because you're like, man, listen, I can't see that well, right? I got barely 20% vision, and yet I managed to buy some properties.
Right.
Right. Why would you go and then go join a group and be a part of the community? What was your inspiration behind that?
Really gaining knowledge from professionals. Like I've just been self-taught. I've made some good decisions, but I've also made a lot of mistakes. So really kind of just getting more knowledge and network with more people and, really trying to scale up, even more.
Got it. So when today, right, versus because just within the last year, right,
Yes.
you bought 7 more buildings.
Correct.
Right. So your unit count has just really door count has gone up.
Yes.
Quite a bit. Right.
Yes.
Since you came to Mastery, because you've been to Mastery barely a year.
Yes.
Right. Are you using more private money now compared
Yes,
to
I am.
before?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And so I keep seeing your picture, on social media all the time with the private money lenders,
Yes.
right? So because and this is a personal question, right? How has it been? Because clearly a lot of people have drawn inspiration from you,
Yes.
right? But how has it been from your end in terms of how's the community adopted you? Have you had any challenges in terms of how am I going to basically fill out all the forms to give to the private money lender? How's that been for you?
It's been pretty good. I haven't really ran into any issues or any problems. I'm using other people's money, so I'm very cautious of that. I give them updates without them even having to ask. When I'm done, I have them do a walkthrough of the properties, and they've been, pretty pleased. I've built some great relationships with a lot of private money lenders.
Right. And I mean, and that's what it is. Sometimes, people have this impression. They're like, oh my God, Andrew likes Miss Andrea, right? And Miss Adrienne. And that's why, because people, it's interesting how people behind your back,
Yes.
right, will say things because all they can see is they don't see somebody overcoming problems. What they see is, oh my God, it must be something special, right? And that's not the case at all, correct? So as far as when it comes to finding properties,
Yes.
right? So on the front end, you're borrowing money from private money lenders,
Yes.
From Mastery. Then you're obviously using their money to fix the property,
Yes.
right? And then you're refinancing it, paying them back, and own the property for the long term.
Yes.
But as far as finding the properties, are you working with one agent? Are you have a way of going through Redfin? How do you find these properties on the MLS?
Well, since I've joined Mastery, I work with one agent. He sets me up on this platform called Zenlist.
Yeah.
So I put in all the zip codes of, where I want to receive properties from. And from there, I look at the properties, I save them, and I try to just map out how the property looks with the description that my phone gives me. I'll send it to a friend and ask them, what does this look like? What does, that like certain questions. And then from there, I request to see the property.
Got it. So you work with, I think you work with Tony?
Tony Garcia, yes.
Tony Garcia from Mastery, right? This is pretty good for Tony, right? So Tony, if you're listening, right? I mean, this is great because genuinely that Tony's a part of Mastery. Tony's an agent,
Yes.
and this is something I've said many, many times, which is that if you're an agent, right, not only should you be doing retail sales, obviously, but you should have good investor clients like Miss Adrienne.
Yes.
Whenever those good properties come up, and number one, you should be buying for yourself, obviously, as an agent. But otherwise, you have good clients in your pocket. You don't need a lot of them. 5, 6, 7 good ones. Every year they're buying 3, 4 properties from you.
Yes.
That's an extra 20, 25 sales, 30 sales, right?
Yes.
That the agent can. And yet somebody like him can be your eyes and ears out there, not only sourcing you deals, but now you have a reliable source of information that you can go to time and time again, correct?
Right. And as we see the property, he kind of knows like, okay, he has a feel of what I'm looking for and what I'm not looking for. So it's just been working out.
Got it. Okay. And then as far as, do you do any inspections?
As far as like a home inspection before I buy them? Yes. So I do a home inspection. And while George is doing the home inspection, my GC is there as well doing the scope of work.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and the reason I'm asking that specific question, because I take that for granted a lot of times, or like somebody like you who owns as many properties as you do,
Yes.
right? I mean, if the vision obviously was not the biggest challenge, a lot of times you could look at the property and go, no, this is something I can handle, no big deal.
Right.
But for you, you have to kind of use an additional tool,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
George, Wyatt, who happens to do a ton of properties, right, in the market for us, right,
Yes.
inspections, and we have a couple other people in Mastery, you're using him as a reliable source.
Yes,
that if he's
absolutely.
saying something, I can kind of basically buy that with confidence. Is that correct?
Yes. I always take George's advice into strong consideration because if he says it's not a good deal, then I'm 100% sure it's not a good deal.
Okay, got it. No, and this is crucial, right? And especially, I think a lot of times, sometimes, we don't value advice, we don't
Yes.
value other things when everything is great.
Yes.
Right? In your case, you're like, no. I got to build great partnership,
Yes.
great relationships with people that I can trust.
Yes.
And then rely on what they're saying because
Yes.
that's what you need in your case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So has there been properties where George has looked at it and go, Miss Adrienne, I'm not sure about this?
Yes, it was one in what is it, Steger?
Steger, okay.
Yes, it was one that the walls were, what is it called, bowing.
Buckling, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
And so I ended up just walking away from that one.
Got it. Okay. So because that's the biggest thing that people would be like, oh my God, if visually she's impaired, how does she really manage to make this happen? And
Right.
it's a team. So you
Yes.
you have an agent, you have somebody reliable, a friend that you trust. So the agent is sending you the property, or you're finding it, you're running by the agent, you're running by
Yes.
your friend. Then George come and inspects it. Then at the same time, you said you have your contractor there.
Yes, and he's doing the scope of work so I can know what the rehab will actually be.
Got it.
Yeah.
So he can kind of talk to George. They can compare notes.
Yes.
And then he can give you the scope of work that, hey, it's going to be 40,000, it's going to be 60,000, whatever it is.
Yes.
So then you know what it's going to take to get it up and running.
Correct, yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
So now, as far as the types of properties you're buying a lot of 2 flats, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit buildings?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have single families as well?
Yes, I have probably about 5 or 6 single families.
5 or 6 single families,
Yes.
and the rest. So do you deal a lot with housing vouchers?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. How's your experience been with that?
It's been a good experience, it's a lot of new things going on now where they're downsizing
Sure.
people's vouchers.
Right.
I haven't experienced that, but the housing tenants that I have are pretty good.
Okay. So do you have had an overall general positive experience, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Because, I mean, you're going to have the idiots of the world. I mean, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's with anything. But overall, you've had the good things about that that you like.
The good thing is that it's guaranteed money. A lot of people think because they have a voucher, you shouldn't, vet them like you do market rent tenants. But, sometimes with housing vouchers, you have to, vet them even, more.
Even more.
Yes.
Right. No, and this is something in general, doesn't matter if you're in the Chicagoland, anywhere. Guys, you have to be equal. I mean, if
Yes.
you're in a nut job, be equal nut job. Right?
Yes.
You can't say, well, this is a housing voucher, this is not a housing voucher. You have to be equal. That's a
Right.
basic a
Yes.
basic thing, common sense thing. And
Yes.
then you have to follow, like in Cook County specifically, right? We have a RLTO ordinance, and you can't hold the person's income against a meaning source
Right.
of income,
Yes.
right? So you have to give everybody an equal opportunity.
Yes.
But that does not mean that you have a certain standard for market tenants and then a lower standard for housing voucher tenants. That's
Exactly.
nobody's saying that. You have equal standards and give them equal treatment so that you vet them exactly the same. Because sometimes what you'll find is some of the best tenants we have had are some of the people that have come from housing voucher.
Correct,
And some of
yes.
the idiots we have had are also from housing voucher. Now, same exact market tenants.
Yes.
Some of the best tenants are
Yes.
market tenants. What I'm trying to say is you're going to have bad apples everywhere. But I think one of the biggest things with rentals is number one, picking the right location.
Yes.
Right? 2 is obviously the right type of property.
Correct.
And then 3 is tenant selection. Tenant
Yes.
selection is probably more important than anything else.
Yes.
Right? So you said you have not been affected by the kind of the right sizing, downsizing that they've been doing of the housing tenants, at least this year so far.
Yes, no, I have not been affected.
Okay, got it. What do you think? Because we're in an economy today where a lot of people are like, it's not necessarily bad, but they have this angst about it, right? How do you deal with that?
As far as when it comes to the housing vouchers,
No. Just in general economy, right? we had the Trump doing his thing, being
Yeah.
Trump, right? And then we have this economic unease, right? Where it's not kind of quite gangbusters what we saw for the last 5-6 years,
Right.
right? Are you feeling that as far as you buying properties, either the positive or the negative?
No, I haven't really noticed any negative. Like I said, my properties are in kind of good working class areas. And for the most part, I have pretty good tenants. So I'm not one of those landlords that raise the rent every year. Usually, when I have good paying tenants, I want to keep them. So I keep the rent where it allows me to get a good cash flow, every month.
So, I mean, I think, and I 100% agree with your philosophy that if you have a good thing going, don't mess with it.
Right.
Don't go try to maximize your rents. Don't try to go push. And nobody's saying that be under market, obviously.
Right.
But it's okay if you're $50, $100 under market, and your tenant is good. They pay on time. They've been there. You want to
Yes.
keep them 3, 4, 5, 6, 10
Yes.
years, right?
Yes.
So, any advice for people that may kind of look at you, maybe facing a challenge? You always, and I have a problem with you because you always seem to have a good attitude about things. I mean, I complain way the heck more, and I got no issues as such, right?
Yes.
I mean, is this artificial? I mean, you take a happy pill. What the hell is
No.
wrong with you?
No, like I'm very spiritual. I just feel like every day on earth is a blessing. It's enough.
Hold on. You really believe this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. No, I'm just asking because, I mean, like everybody says this, right? Everybody, I mean, even I realize, right, that if you're healthy, unless somebody's really forcing you off the cliff, really, I mean, your health is okay.
Yes.
Things are, in general, relative problems are
Right.
very, very small. But you seem always to have a good attitude. Is that
Yes.
you credit that to spirituality?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Like every day on earth is a blessing. And there's always someone out there in the world that is, in a worse position than you are. I mean, I lost my vision, but I'm still able to think clearly. I'm able to walk. I'm able to be as independent as much as I can, so I take that as a blessing.
Okay, got it. And because that is something that I have admired about you, right? I mean, obviously, like when most people are like, oh my God, Miss Adrienne has all these properties, right? I mean, that's one thing, but I truly credit that to your attitude.
Yes.
Right. I genuinely feel that, and I think that's the greatest thing about you. And I mean this sincerely. That if somebody wants a sister, somebody wants a spouse, somebody wants a mother, right, aunt, right, they
Yes.
should have somebody in their life that has your kind of attitude,
Yes, thank
right?
you.
Because it's genuinely, it's not. Unfortunately, some of these things none of us have control over, but yet how you react to it is what is awe-inspiring for all of us.
Yes.
Right. And I wanted you to come back, Bassam, and the whole team was like, man, we got to have Miss Adrienne come back because this is such an inspiration for anybody that looks at it. That and this is a question to the audience. The guys, for most of us, we can see 2020, but yet our biggest blind spot is that we don't see the opportunity that's right in front of us because we take it for granted. So, any parting words as we wrap this up?
The main thing is that if real estate is something that you're interested in, come to the 3-day conference that Andrew holds. It's very inspirational, very good to just network and talk to other people. And sometimes you just have to get over, the scare that you have within you and just take a leap of faith. Change is always going to be difficult in the beginning, but it can be rewarding in the end. So never be afraid or hesitant to change something in your life that you're not happy with.
So I got to ask you one thing because this was something I should have touched on, and that is whenever initially you started. Now today you have access to private money.
Correct.
Right. Initially, when you were buying properties, right before you kind of came to us, when you got started, how were you buying properties?
I was using my own money. I was
Okay.
pulling the equity from my properties, getting a new mortgage, and then using that money to buy more properties.
Okay, got it. So you were basically doing either a HELOC or taking equity out. I mean,
Correct.
either way, and then using that to
Yes.
go and buy more properties, right?
Yes.
Because so I mean, did you come from a family where they had a lot of money?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
The reason I ask that is because that's another excuse, right? I've heard it's like, Andrew, Miss Adrienne must have had a lot of money. I'm like, I'm sure she's got a money tree in her backyard. She goes and shakes, hey, but yet you're dealing with your circumstances like anybody else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Great. Miss Adrienne, this has genuinely been great. It's always a pleasure to have you,
Thank you.
in the studio. So for the audience that's watching, please like, share, and share the video with your friends and family. If you have not been to the 3-day conference, Miss Adrienne mentioned it. It's go online, register, cashflowconference.com. That's cashflowconference.com. And we're in an economy today where you have a ton of opportunity, where times of change is where you go deep and you find the best properties, because right now is when the opportunities show up. Having said that, thanks a bunch, guys, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.